You mentioned it before, the impact of Diogo Jota. The Star has that as their headline. They'll never walk alone. Emotional day, of course. Both sets of players, both clubs, both sets of supporters paying their respects to Jota and his brother. You cannot underestimate that tragedy. And Dominic King in the Daily Mail says this was not an afternoon for conclusions. It was an afternoon to get through, for those in goal to sing in the 18th minute and those in red to follow suit in the 20th minute, uniting in their love for Jota and his brother Andre Silva. And Liverpool haven't mentioned Jota as one of the reasons why it has been so difficult.
Yeah, they can't because to be fair to Liverpool, out of respect for the situation, they don't want to look for excuses. I think it's absolutely right that they're not doing that. But I did a piece with a sports psychologist earlier in the season, and he talked about this as being a season of grief for Liverpool, that almost not write it off, but you cannot underestimate the impact on the players. You saw in the first game of the season Mohamed Salah in tears against Bournemouth. You saw Andrew Robertson talking when Scotland qualified. It's so close to the surface. You saw Virgil van Dijk talking about it last week. It's impossible to quantify the effect it's had on those players because we've all lost people who've worked with us in terms of workplace environments, but in a football dressing room it's so much more intense. The camaraderie, the collectiveness, the team basically has suffered. I'm not sure it's a brilliant idea to still have his shirt on the peg. I understand why they do that, and I think Steve Warnock talked in commentary a while ago about obviously the applause in the 20th minute and so on. I get all of that, but it's just so there all the time. It's impossible for these players to really move on from that quickly. You're talking about at least a 6 months to a year process to get over that grief, I think. And it's not, you obviously can't, you can't write off the season, you can't call it a season of grief, but I understand what the psychologist was saying to me about it because it's impossible to quantify the effect it's had on everyone at the club because he was such an important player, such a loved player and such a good teammate, good friend. I mean, it's hard to get over that, and it must, even that 1% effect it has on your performance is a huge difference.
I think the way they did it yesterday was incredible. Actually, I think the way they did it and have handled it, frankly, an impossible situation, a devastating situation with dignity and class.
Yeah.
Epitomises what Liverpool as a football club and supporters stand for. Really do, because the way even Van Dijk, I read with great interest, Paul Joyce did it in the Times yesterday, first person piece with him talking about various aspects around the season. It was placed in sort of kind of almost bullet points in kind of the way it was done, and it was a fascinating read about the impacts of players. And Van Dijk talked about the phone call that he received when he was coming back from holiday and the devastation around that, and basically the impact it's had because he was such a beloved teammate and player and person. And I do think we wouldn't say underestimated, because I think that would be wrong, because if you think about the story and the impact and the heartbreak, and football is one thing that football is good at is respect and appreciation, and I think that basically that's there. And I think one thing we perhaps underestimated was the impact that it might have on the players and sort of in certain moments, and it's going to affect you so much, because certain squads have a player, don't they, that was a bit of magic, and even if they didn't start every week, there was sort of kind of that player that you look to with such love and affection. That was Jota for Liverpool.
Yesterday must have been so tough as well. I mean, let's think about Jota's wife and his kids. I mean, incredible that they had the bravery to do that yesterday, because Jota's wife was on the touchline and his kids were on the pitch, and maybe the kids are too young to appreciate the magnitude of it. But again, talking to the players, to see Jota's wife and kids on the pitch, that must have been so hard for them as well. And the whole emotion of the day was incredible, really. And I think the fact that Liverpool having to deal with this, and they don't want to make excuses. You're right. And when it's mentioned, it's negatives will say it's an excuse, and when it's not mentioned, it's almost like brushing under the carpet. What do you do? But I just think primarily yesterday was about his wife and kids, and I think it was just an incredible gesture, really.
For Wolves, it was another defeat. I know you touched on it before, John. Dom King says Wolves played with heart and with a bit more quality would have caused Liverpool greater problems as they pushed for an equaliser in the dying moments. Here, just when it was needed, was a pleasing show of character. But it is another defeat. They're in huge danger of that unwanted record of 11 points that Derby set a few years ago. What do you think the approach for Rob Edwards and the club is going to be in January? Because they want to show that they're still fighting, but it looks like an impossible fight, and yet they need to have one eye on next season as well. And the signings that they can potentially make, they need them there for next season to come back up, don't they?
Yeah, and I think the danger is you talk so much about next season and, you know, even in sort of various pieces, and I think I had something with the sporting director recently, you know, was asked, you know, was Rob Edwards a sort of a, you know, his appointment a nod to next season? But, you know, you can't get away from that basically he has taken a team up and basically he's obviously got a great connection with Wolves as a manager. But the danger, I think, about that is if you talk about Rob Edwards being the man to get them back up, you're already signing off this season. And of course, everyone knows that they're going to get relegated. You have to be incredibly naive or stupid not to accept that. Having said that, as soon as you do that, then you are costing yourself points because you're going into every game with such a negative, you know, start point. I mean, they did well to kind of stay in the game because 2 goals in very quick succession with Liverpool. You were expecting a goal rush in the second half, which didn't arrive. They got themselves back into it and were competitive. So that's credit to Rob Edwards. But I see there's certain games where they just don't compete and they look beyond salvation.
I think what they'll do is if they don't win a couple more games soon, I think they'll sell some players in January. I think they'll think these are Premier League players, we'll get more money for them in the January window than if we wait to the summer. And I think I could see, for example, Strand Larsen going. He didn't start yesterday. I could see Andre Gomez going. I could see a couple of players going in January as an admission that we're going down. And that's the best way to get some money back for them. And I think they'll just start preparing for next season.
How can they look to Rob Edwards for next season? If Wolves go down with the worst record in the Premier League, then Rob Edwards can't survive that.
He's not the problem.
No, but he's not the problem. Listen, I think we all like Rob Edwards. He did a great job at Luton.
He's a good manager.
But if you go down with the worst record in the Premier League, the actual mood of the club will require a change. And having the guy that took you down with the worst record, he came in not even mid-season, quarter of the season through, it's really hard for him to survive.
Surely there would have been reassurances when he took over.
Reassurances mean nothing in football.
They're not playing that badly at the moment. They're putting in. They did well against Arsenal. They did well yesterday.
They're miles off.
That's the squad, though, isn't
of course
it? And I think he's got them fighting a bit more. I think it'd be really strange if they sacked him at the end of the season.
I agree with that, but I don't think the fans would accept the fact that if they go down like they're going to go down, potentially worse than Derby, it's really hard for anyone to survive that. You need a complete clean sweep of everything.
Well, Jeff Shee's gone, so I think that was he was the target of a lot of the anger. They will not. I would be amazed if they turn on Rob Edwards. I think he's their best chance of getting them back up if they keep him in place and change that squad and revitalise that squad. That's my opinion. I can't really see how he can be blamed for what's happening at the moment.
Can't be blamed, but football's like that.
No, sure, I get that, but you've got to sometimes hold your nerve and do the right thing. The right thing is to stick with him.
We'll see.
John, just very, very quickly, a really worrying story, isn't it? The Ian Rush exclusive in the back of your paper. I thought I was going to die. I collapsed at home after super flu left me struggling to breathe. It was so frightening. That's an exclusive in your paper by John Richardson.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, one of the English football's all-time greats there, and of no age, relatively speaking, as well. One of the Liverpool great. I mean, really emotive stuff there from Rushy. Basically, really interesting and brilliant, powerful read from John Richardson, and basically, saying that his panic. As he really felt it through the night, and it worsened and worsened. And I think the nation has been sort of gripped by kind of a flu virus at the moment, and this is a real wake-up call. Just 64 years old, and Rushy is still so close to sort of kind of Liverpool and his connections there, particularly friendly with Salah, and still such an absolute legend of English football that actually I think looking at that, wow, it's some story, it's some interview, and it's really powerful because I think we'd all seen the story that he had been ill but hadn't realised quite how desperate it was. So really pleasing to see he's pulled out through the other side because a true great. I must say, my experience as a person and also as a player, brilliant.
Yeah, let's wish him well. Let's take a quick break now, and when we come back we'll see how the Sunday papers are reporting the 2 Premier League games to come on Super Sunday today. Thomas Frank is a man under scrutiny ahead of Tottenham Hotspur's game with Crystal Palace. We'll discuss this piece inside The Sun on Sunday. I only want top-notch players. And there's more in the papers about Manchester United's latest win and a new system from Ruben Amorim. United take the win as the league's uncertainty principle kicks in.